This is the daily writing exercise recorded, day 39, titled A Thursday Afternoon. It was a busy Thursday afternoon. John sat on one of the many wooden benches along the man-made city canal. Dozens of people passed him by during the work break. Trams filled with people destined for the central station came and went every half minute or so. A water feature tried to spell out a sentence, though John could not tell what it was. Behind him, a construction crew worked on the front side of an old home, restoring and replacing the old wood and stone fixed within it. The weather wasn't particularly hot or cold. It was somewhere in the middle, with a cloudy grey sky, with most people walking around with a jacket on, whilst others walked around in a t-shirt. John looked down at the ground and spotted a lonely ant circling around one of the bench's legs. He wondered what it thought and where it was going, and he wondered how it related to him. John had lived in the same city for most of his life. He had walked along the same canal a few years past and had gazed at the same people passing him by. His life was different then. It wasn't any particularly worse or better. Well, beyond the fact that he had a job now and he didn't then. But the question he struggled with at the time still lay unanswered. All that remained was an ironic reality wherein which he wore a suit, despite a staunch resolution all those years ago to never become that sort of a person. And yet here he was, being very much everything of that person, even when internally John felt empty. Getting a job, wearing a suit, and having money clearly did not resolve his life's problems. Something he knew back then, but could only really confirm now. There were still 20 minutes left on his break. John looked around him and began to study the other people. He didn't want to think about his own problems, so felt he might as well fantasize about the lives of others. There were two women who sat on a bench to the right of his. One was completely dressed in white, the other in a mix of white and light green. They had been talking to each other for a while now. The topic seemed serious. Neither had laughed the entire time. Their frequent nods and verbal hand gestures only seemed to emphasize that fact. Then there were the two men sitting on the bench to the left of John. John pegged them as teenagers also on their break, although they looked to be in their 20s or even 30s with their full beards. One was in the throes of eating a sandwich, whilst the other did most of the talking. They seemed a lot happier than the two women. John then could not help but return to himself, sitting in the middle, not sure how or what to feel about it all. He was neither of them. He was alone. He was alone all those years ago, and he still was now. So in reality, John had to conclude, as his break came to an end, was that nothing had changed and that he was very much still the same person he was back then, and that by the grace of God he would have given up on it all, were he not in the midst of the slog that was his daily life. No more has been written or recorded. Thank you for listening.